Give ear, O ye pilgrims trudging through this vale of tears. Behold Once for All Delivered, a podcast wherein the pure streams of Reformed theology and the crooked paths of this earthly culture be searched out. Three godly servants, Caleb Castro, Andrew Smith, and Stephen Everett do wield the sword of truth, expounding that faith once for all delivered unto the saints.
And
do we need to give a content warning moving forward?
Yeah. So if you are listening to this episode, from this point forward, we would say viewer discretion is advised. If you're listening with your kids or whatever, this is the point where you want to stop doing that, because we will talk about these things as prudently as possible. But if your kids don't know about these things, you don't want them probably to learn about them the first time from us. So
no. But to that point, there are a growing number of things that I'm even finding with my children. I have to introduce ideas to you in a way that is doesn't harm your innocence in a destructive way, but inoculates you to ideas that will rock your world if they hit you wrong. Anyways.
Yeah.
So not us.
So with that, this assassination of Charlie Kirk was carried out by Tyler Robertson. Now, I mentioned before, it seems that he had a fairly normal American, even conservative upbringing. He grew up hunting. That's how he was able to acquire and shoot a gun in the way that he did to carry out this assassination. I believe he grew up Mormon because he's from Utah, so of course. But like I said, he had that upbringing, but then something happened. Now, he did go off to college. He was at a university for one semester. And early on, there was a bit of narrative circulating that, well, he went to college and the college radicalized him, and it almost certainly didn't help. We talked a little bit earlier about the situation on college campuses and how they have very much become progressive echo chambers. But what particularly seemed to get a hold of Tyler Robertson and take him down the dark road he went was the internet and things he learned, ideologies he found, content and material that was made available to him through the internet, and then people and relationships even that arose out of that.
Yes.
So, and it is, again, it's only been a week. There's a lot that's going to come out. There's going to be a legal proceeding. He has been arrested. He has been charged. He is facing the death penalty. But so far, it seems that through the internet, he was exposed to LGBT ideology generally. Now, it's also notable that he was a Mormon in Utah, because there has been a particular tendency in recent years among the LDS to be more tolerant of homosexuality and moving in a more progressive direction that way. But what seems to have occurred in the case of Tyler Robertson is through the internet, he came into contact with various kinds of pornography, and particularly pornography of a transgender sort. That's one kind. There seems there were others as well. Other things, he was active on various platforms. He was very much into video game culture, gamer culture. And these things often exist, and these communities are often on platforms that are leftist monocultures. So things like Discord and Twitch. And then there's an even more degenerate form of Twitch called Kick, which are basically like video game streaming platforms. And then Discord is a communications platform used a lot by gamers and things of that sort, but other things as well. It seems that he got into Antifa ideology. Is one of those things that's named prejudicially, that who would dare be against being anti-fascist, but it turns out they're actually communists and terrorists. They were the ones that really rose to recognition and prominence back in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter.
Summer of Love or something, wasn't it? Or what did they call it? The Summer of Peace, or I don't know.
It was summer.
Call it what you want. It was 2020.
It was Anarchy Boy summer.
Yeah, and so in a lot of these major cities, there were these Antifa cells, and they're still there to this day. In many places, they just operate right out in the open, but more or less a radical leftist and violent organization. And Tyler Robertson was exposed to them. Also, through these various online channels, somehow he came to meet his boyfriend, who... I say boyfriend, he's a biological and born male, but was in the process of transitioning to female. So this is where we see the connection to transgenderism, with so many violent acts against Christians have been carried out by transgender individuals in recent months and years. But this one, again, there is that connection. They lived together. They had a romantic relationship. But also, it seemed that they were involved in furry subculture. Now, how to put this delicately? I'm going to let Caleb do it.
Yeah, delicately tell us about the furries.
This is a subculture on the internet of people that like to create an alternate personality. And fantasy personality, where they in part pretend that they are anthropomorphic animals. They'll often have someone, if they have no art skills themselves, they'll have someone with even a little bit of moderate art skills draw a picture, illustrate a picture of their what they call fursonas, or you can hear that word. This sounds already just ludicrous. This is a real thing. An avatar persona is what they call it.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about the movie.
It's Avatar. So weird when you say it out loud.
It really is weird when you say it out loud. It sounds ridiculous, like it almost couldn't exist. But basically, think of a transgender, right? They have a mental concept in their head that their true identity, their true inner self is in them, right? And how their external appearance and biology doesn't match that. Well, there's people that think that they're animals, or that they are. Yeah, internally identify it with a wolf or a cat, and we've in our
octopus.
In our extensive research, we found people that identify as octopuses.
Octopi.
Octopi. That's right. Sorry, pardon me. So they'll have an illustration done up of their animal personality, and this is usually done in an anime style, Japanese cartoon style. Anthropomorphic, human-like wolf. Now, that's one part of it, where basically, they have this animal identity, but they also will. There's a whole community of this, right? So you can find your community on the internet. So they make a bunch of friends with people with these animal personalities, these personas, and it is very big with the transgendered and homosexual crowds.
I've heard of statistics that up to 80% of people involved in being furries are also LGBT of some sort.
Yeah, I was going to say not every LGBT person is a furry, but apparently 80% of furry people are LGBT.
Well, I mean, you're basically just. So it seems like degrees and degrees of deviation from standard sexuality. So, if you're going to leave male and female, he created them. Well, now it's male and male. Well, maybe I'm not a male. Well, maybe I'm not even a human.
Well, let me, yeah. Right. Well, let me, if you'll give me a couple minutes here, I want to kind of break down some of this concept with a Substack post, not ours. But a Substack, actually, I believe I sent this to Stefan quite a while ago. This is from this is a Substack called By Any Other Name, from a user named Helena, or at LaCroix SZ, LACROICSZ. Perhaps would be something helpful for the show notes. Basically, this is a story of someone who did a post back in 2022 who's detransitioning. She had, for a number of years, been a part of the identified as transgender, and was a part of that community. But she goes into the background of how this happens. I won't read the whole thing, but I would encourage people to read it. It's very illuminating of how this occurs. But basically, grew up an ordinary girl. She went through a hard time with a big loss in her family. She started becoming very secluded by 8th grade, stopped really talking with kids like her at school and this kind of stuff. Had an eating disorder, was very image conscientious. And at this time, she got really into, classic rock and roll from the 50s and 60s. And she found out about a website, I believe this is about 2013 or so. She found out about the website Tumblr. And she on there, she found that there was many teenage girls or people that were posting things about, the 50s, 60s rock and roll and stuff. And so she liked what people posted. You can basically save it, kind of like your own little internet scrapbook. But then she wanted to start creating her own content too. So she would do that. She made friends on this Tumblr platform. And she could find people with the same sort of interests like her, like Harry Potter, Justin Bieber, blah, blah, blah. So she would spend countless hours on it. Now, the thing is, when you make friends, even online, you want to share in the things that they do. She started to realize that quite a number of people on there were LGBT. Read a brief section from here. She first of all describes Tumblr as being kind of like the Lord of the Flies on the internet. Basically, what would you happen if you have this community with bunch of kids running it, no oversight really. But she says a major aspect of Tumblr culture has always been social justice ideology. Things that are now being played out and witnessed by the general public on platforms like Twitter and TikTok, like dissociative identity disorder, LARPers, or people who do role-playing, demisexuals, neopronouns, otherkin, people who identify as other animals, and everything that you see on things like libs of TikTok. They have all long existed in an uncannily identical form on Tumblr.com. The oppression of hierarchy of racial and gender identities is now being written into law in many of our once serious nations, was the state religion of the People's Republic of Tumblr long before your political junkie knew the term critical race theory. So in other words, a lot of these degenerate groups flourished on the internet for years. And she said, as cultish religions tend to operate, open devotion to the religion is mandatory. Perhaps the outsiders most likely to understand the way social dynamics worked on that website would be survivors of Scientology or the Jehovah's Witnesses. On Tumblr, the situation was such that any claim to being oppressed would accumulate social credibility, right? So you get more followers and more sympathy by a bunch of teenage girls and stuff, or teenage boys too, perhaps, if you are somehow oppressed. But if you had an unfortunate privileged status, then that was justification for people to verbally abuse you. So if you were white, if you were straight, right, if you were in a middle-class home, and so on and so forth. If you were a privileged person, you were expected to constantly grovel and apologize, or else basically you don't get to have your Tumblr friends. So how do you survive that kind of environment? Well, you start to look for ways to identify if I find yourself to be a victim, blah, blah, blah. Basically, you go on a hunt to then see, well, what sort of victim or oppressed person can you be? Now, she had, basically, if you're LGBT or something like that, then you can't have a target on your back. So this is, she said, the incentive I felt to comb through my thoughts and memories for things that might be further evidence of deep down issues. She started to think, well, maybe I'm not really a girl. I hated my body. It must be because I don't like that it's female. Boys have never been interested in me like they are with other girls. And maybe I would be attractive as a boy instead. And then I could be like all these cute, quote, gay trans boys, unquote, she says. I saw dating, that she saw dating each other online. I didn't have many friends. It must be because being a girl isn't my authentic self, and that was getting in the way of my social life. Plus, people were nicer to me since I said I was trans, so that must be an indication that being trans is the right thing to do to make friends. Female sexuality is hypersexualized and pornified, yet it's supposedly empowering for women to do porn, to be prostitutes, or to have dangerous, kinky, scary sounding things with different men. Basically, she wanted to stop being what she considered as a vanilla girl. She wanted people to pay attention to her, and she wanted to be accepted. She could never find the kind of boys that she was attracted to and liked, and so she decided to become that kind of boy. And this all started from basically a how do you fit in sort of thing. You find a group, you want to be accepted, and so you start to appease them.
One of the things that you can observe in this, before the internet, it would have been a lot more difficult to find and connect with a community in scare quotes like this. If you were having these kind of issues or these kind of questions or doubts, what would be much more likely in the pre-internet time, you would, deal with that in your, with your parents or with your church or whatever, and you would probably get over it and grow out of it at some point. But instead, especially for people who are on the internet from a young age, they can find these things, get involved with these things, and really, even in many of these communities, they'll turn people against their parents, get them to leave home, run away, whatever, or even if they're adults by that point, to estrange themselves further from their old lives and old friends and old family to be a part of this new community. It does almost take on a cultish fervor. I did mention like some of the platforms, I mentioned Discord and things like that. Reddit is another place where you can see a lot of this. And this is not to say that like everything on Reddit is this, but there is a lot of this on Reddit and other sites like it. 4chan is another one where you see a lot of these ideologies coming up, an old but still around message board site. I say these are leftist monocultures because if you were to be on one of these sites and you just even articulate anything morally that pushes back even in the slightest on things like LGBT or whatever, or abortion, or if you articulate anything politically that's to the right of second term Obama, they'll basically run you out on a rail. They will ban you or moderate you into non-existence in these communities. So there's a very high incentive for conformity within these communities as well.
Well, and where do we get? So you said if you do any kind of pushback, well, why would you have any kind of pushback? And for Christians, it's because we have the wisdom of the Lord. And you think about how people are really drawn into this if they are not equipped with the Holy Spirit and the wisdom of the Lord to see through these things, and they're following after their passions. I was thinking about the draw of the community, and I think in that article too, whenever people try to get out of it, it's like, oh no, this, that, or the other thing, and they're always trying to, it's like a group of people coaxing you in. And it reminded me of Proverbs 9. The woman folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat on the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there and that her guests are in the depths of hell. The draw, the seduction, the simplicity of those who fall into it. Yeah, I think this to me, it just describes these online communities.
Well, there's and another element of it too. Now, this isn't just leftist in the sense of like liberal left wing ideology. I mean, in some of these boards, in some of these internet platforms, there's such a mix. But one of the and including, in other words, you do get people that are at least politically to the right as well. On some of these platforms, part of the issue is that that moderation or basically oversight is small, or that there are very little rules. And so in some of these, people can post entirely anonymously. People can put whatever they want on some of these places on the internet, or almost anything that they want. They can say almost anything that they want. They can engage in and share almost anything they want. And why? Well, they have a screen in front of them, right? It's anonymity. They become very emboldened to just let loose, right? Or to even not just to talk about things that they might not otherwise talk about to other people in public, in, we'll just say in polite society, so-called, but to also to engage and imbibe in. So someone that perhaps has never been exposed to certain really disturbing and deviant content could very well come across it on some of these platforms and see it, and that's it basically captures the eye, right? And it makes you think on these things. You become increasingly desensitized the more you see things. You start to care less about it. And
it
again, this is
also
without moderation.
it also the more you become desensitized, then the more you want to seek deviant or whatever kind of content you're looking for. You have to move to more and more extreme and radical versions of it. Everything that we have talked about along the way, not just talking about LGBT and trans and all that, but even getting down into furry subculture and stuff. There's the associated pornography that goes with all these different things and all the different fetishes and the like. And more than enough of that stuff out there for someone who merely just wants to look, who is willing to go look. They'll find that they'll find more than enough of the evil out there.
I was just reading an article today from I think it was a Surgeon General back in the late 70s, early 80s, on issuing a report on some of the dangers of pornography. And it was kind of, poo-pooed by the political figureheads. But I was reading kind of a follow-up and comments on that report. And it was noted how what was classified as so-called hardcore porn, hardcore pornography in decades past is basically like standard vanilla pornography. Whereas softcore pornography has basically become out in the open in movies, perhaps on Netflix and these kind of things, perhaps even in advertisements in certain areas. There's been an increasing desensitization already to that, as well as now you add on the success, or you could say, of the LGBT advocates since Obergefell, how they became emboldened. We were told, well, we just love is love, and we, gays just want to marry each other and have equal rights. This isn't going to lead to transgenderism and other forms of attractions. This isn't going to lead to advocacy for bestiality or for pedophilia, but it is.
Well, it's really interesting. I thought maybe you sent me an article, and maybe it was just when I was reading, but it was about how if you take sexuality and you destroy the fact that it was created for marriage, for the procreation and the enjoyment of that couple, and it becomes the self-pleasure principle, if that's what sexuality is, the self-pleasure principle, and then take the marriage thing away, there actually is no end to the amount and the different ways that you can deviate along that line of reasoning. And so that's why, when they poo-pooed it in the 70s, they just hadn't imagined far enough yet, because they were still coming off of a culture that was, for the most part, in monogamous marriages. It's like, well, we're just doing a little bit more of self-pleasing ourselves. But no, if you want to make self-pleasing as the rule, you can go anywhere with that. Absolutely anywhere.
So then the same thing with, away from the realm of pornography, also just in terms of violence, right? And how violence is almost, it doesn't matter these days. When you look at the sort of content or consider the sort of content that might come out in movies, if you go onto IMDb and think of like a certain movie, there's a there's a part on it that you could look at the parents guide and you can see the extent of, it'll give you warnings and content of what's in that movie. I mean, it's like you really need to kind of sift through those things before you watch something now, because it's just, you never know what you're going to really come across. But violence and gore is just so commonplace.
Well, what is the right parameter for violence?
Yeah.
It's for the defense of others.
Mm-hmm.
If you remove it and say, well, I can use violence for my own viewing pleasure, well, once again, there's no end to the bounds of that. You can go anywhere with it.
Well, and you could end up being sitting on a subway and watch a young girl get her throat slit and stabbed in front of you, and just stare, record a video, and just watch her bleed out to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or even if you don't, aren't there or don't want to see it, it's going to be all over your social media feed by the end of the day. So,
well,
there's a good chance you're going to end up seeing it anyway, or it'll be all over the news, or yeah.
Well, and our culture has gotten desensitized to the point. I mean, this very day, I walked into a Fairway, and there was a sign of there must be a new
Jason.
There must be a new Jason movie coming out, and one of the beer companies is advertising with that. And I assume the beer supplier gave them an end display, but it was a full size cutout of Jason holding a machete with like blood on it. And, he looked filthy and disgusting and terrifying. I asked for the manager right away. And to his credit, he took it down. I did put it on social media and tried to get that pressure too. And he messaged me on Facebook and said, I want you to know it's down. And so I said, way to go. Thank you. But at the same time, we're so desensitized that somebody goes, oh, well, we'll just put it up. It's like little children walk through here, 2-year-old, 3-year-old girls who have never seen, not even girls, boys, they've never seen anything that grotesque in their life till they walk past that display in a grocery store.
I remember actually my first time ever even coming in contact with Friday the 13th, in the sense in a it was in a kids cartoon in the early 90s or so. And so, I mean, it was in this kids cartoon, basically had this character that was in the part of Jason and running around chasing the kids in the kind of this fantasy scene. And so it's like it's considered as something that's just like, oh, pop culture, right? Well, who's pop culture?
Yeah.
Is that the pop culture you want? So, I mean, and this is already, again, back in the 90s. And it's like, so you're already throwing things in that terrify kids from horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to your point at the grocery store, I'm guessing probably before you said anything, probably nobody along the way in that chain, be it from the beer supplier to the store manager to whatever clerk had to set that thing up or whatever, probably nobody even just thought about it. We're so used to seeing that stuff. We're so used to just being everywhere that
it's Halloween, unfold it, put it up. Yeah, of course.
Well, actually, Halloween is another interesting example because we've gotten to a point now where Halloween is the holiday next to Christmas that people spend the second most money on for costumes and decorations and all of that kind of stuff. And, to typically try to look like any number of things, most of which aren't good. But yeah, it's really, it does reflect this what's the word I'm looking for?
Desensitization.
We'll go. Yeah, desensitization. We'll go with that.
You need to shave you trim your beard. It's interfering with your ability to pronounce.
But I already did trim it. This is the trimmed version.
Oh.
You mean he meant to say decent shaving, not desensitization?
Desensitization.
Anyway,
well, what about?
Well, the thesis of this the thesis of this. Well, go ahead. Well, reminding the thesis of the section is that the internet is for real and the ideas are scary.
Yeah, well,
dangerous.
They stick in people's heads.
That's better.
Yeah, we can say the same thing in just media as a whole. I mean, the political rhetoric for the past several years. I mean, even Antifa itself. And you remember back in the George Floyd riots, where they're going around, throwing bricks and concrete milkshakes at people, right? I mean, you had you had people shootings throughout the country. I mean, and the political rhetoric, especially against the right, generally has been so heated that it's basically been a call for violence nonstop, right? And it's, you ask how much has this led to where we're at now, where you can't have someone like Charlie Kirk out on a college campus, a place that's supposedly for free ideas, right, and academic discourse and disagreement for learning things. You can't have someone entering into an open air debate and discussion without having them get shot for it because you don't like their opinions. I mean, it came out that the motive of Tyler Robinson, the murderer, was that Charlie Kirk was spreading hate, and some things just can't be negotiated, right? Basically, no more talking. You're full of hate, and so I'm going to kill you. So where's the logic in that? I mean, you're the arbiter of the one who's deciding what is hateful, what's evil.
And then as a result, who gets to die and who gets to live.
Yeah. You end up playing judge, jury, executioner, and God. Well, this is with Tyler Robinson, though, it's just it's like I mean, we don't know much about him aside from just aside from what's circulated throughout the internet. And in some senses, I don't really want to know much more about him. As it is, you have someone that was very deep into video games, internet culture, and sexual deviancy. And where has this led?
And so, on that note, we should talk about what does this mean for Christians? What can we learn? How do we need to approach and handle these kind of things? Because it's not like they're going away quickly. One quick note, actually, even as we've talked about all these deviancies and stuff on the internet, even the most mild of pushback against it is met with very severe opposition. There have been some laws passed in some places. I think we've talked about some on previous episodes of the show, how some states have passed age verification laws for accessing adult websites. And some countries, like in Europe, have done that too. And pretty much everybody, like in the tech space, and this whole sphere we're talking about, video games and that kind of thing, with a rather unanimous voice, has come out against it and said that it's this huge invasion of privacy and this huge overreach by the government. There's just a great deal of resistance and inertia to any solution for it. So if it's not going anywhere, what do we do?
Also, a additional note on that, where it's, aside from the internet too, we could also point at libraries, right? Public libraries and school libraries, where you can find a lot of, I mean, just disturbing content, including LGBT stuff too, right? I think Florida had a book ban on this kind of stuff, right? And I mean, that just got reversed as being unconstitutional. We have a friend here whose wife worked in the public library in our little town, 4,000 or so. And one thing that they had found out is that basically you can have a kid can open their own account, and they could check out a book without the parents' knowledge. Basically, they can get a book ordered and have it checked and then check it out, and the parent doesn't have the right to
ask what their child is
what
checking
it
out.
is. Right.
Yep. And they in fact had to have their own account. They could not just check out books on their parents' account.
Mm-hmm. So this kind of stuff just doesn't get monitored. Yeah, I mean, I'm a part of a Christian homeschooling and book exchange Facebook group, and basically where people ask like, okay, well, what's this book like? How's this book? Is this something fine for the kid to read or something? And one parent had posted their son had checked out at the public library a Japanese comic, a manga, and it was, and basically was like, I mean, it was basically pornography.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, it just looks like cartoons. So no one actually checks this kind of stuff. Or if they do, well, it's not my problem.
So what are we going to do about it?
Well,
that's all the time we have today.
Right. Well, and not even that. There had a friend who sent a picture of some books from a nearby, very close town too, from the library, and the book was basically just like it's called like the Monster Book series or something. I sent you this, and the writer is some strange, like effeminate trans weirdo from Germany who he literally, I mean, his literal entire goal is to corrupt children.
Mhm.
I
And
think
the
we
book is,
talked about that on one of
did
our previous
did we?
episodes.
Oh, okay.
No,
Well, just
like before you were here. Sorry,
oh.
Stefan, but
Oh, anyways, what it's just a book that was basically like teaching kids to lie to their parents and do all kinds of naughty
That's right.
stuff.
Hmm.
And it's just unreal.
Well, so it sounds like one of the things is you don't need to be like parents don't need to be experts in themselves going and learning all of these deviant things for themselves, but they really need to be guards in, I think, in screening what their kids are engaging in. I mean, so this also brings the question of then what in the first place is permissible, right? So for one, do you take your kids to a public library?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for one, maybe reconsider that. But two, if so, I mean, you should screen what those books are. Search through them if there's pictures, look through every page.
Yeah.
Two is perhaps look up online summaries about the books. Have yourself read through these things beforehand before you let them read it. You know, it's just you need to be able to somehow filter the content yourself, like figure it out what's in there.
Yeah.
If it's not if it's not Christian, you know, I mean, you don't want to entirely say, well, don't read anything non-Christian whatsoever, but how profitable is it truly?
Yeah. I want to push back just a little bit about, you said something like they don't need to go engage with these things themselves. I think there's a sense in which you don't need to go and engage and imbibe them as if a viewer of the things for the reason for which they were created, whether it's, whatever. But I am often astounded with the ignorance of parents regarding the material, whether digital or in print, that their children are handling. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's just reading Japanese comics. Well, pick up some of them and look through them. There's another one too. This game, it's like apparently like one of the most popular games now, Roblox.
yeah,
It
video
is like,
game, online
it's like one of the
video game.
most popular video games, and there's tools that you can use in the game to make other games. It's highly customizable and stuff. But there's like you can make sexually suggestive, if not even almost explicit content, and then like kids are running around seeing this. And then even recently, I was talking with a kid in one of our churches, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's all like neo Nazis and stuff chatting on there." The kid's like 9, and he's chatting with like neo Nazis.
Why do you know what a neo-Nazi is?
Well, this is my and why do your parents not know the content you're engaging with? And if they do, how dare they?
Yeah. It would seem like
get engaged.
Yeah, in light of what we have talked about here, for one thing, like at a bare minimum, if you have children, they ought never be on the internet in any situation where you don't know exactly what they're doing and exactly who, if anyone, they might be communicating with or interacting with, or what exactly they are doing. Because it does not take very long at all to veer off of a seemingly safe path into this total degeneracy and evil of the kinds that we have described.
And this, yeah, and well, first, when I say what I said was they don't need to be the encyclopedia. Basically, they don't need to themselves do it. They shouldn't be users themselves, which I'll get into in a second. There, actually, no, I'll just say it now. That you shouldn't be a user yourself on these kind of things, as in that's your interest, as in that you're into manga with all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think I picked up manga when I was like 7 or so.
I thought, how low is he going to go?
And 7's pretty young, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is back when it wasn't super popular in the first place and widespread. And there was already violent and suggestive themes in them. The it's almost like it's hard to find anything in the Japanese comics or in anime that doesn't have even a little bit of something suggestive or wrong like that, or violent for that matter too. So I say in general, try to avoid it. There's a very small amount of safe content that I would even recommend in the first place with it. But if possible, just avoid it. Second is that you can. What are you watching yourself on TV and movies, right? And do you watch those in front of kids? And that's where you have to really be conscientious of, including language, right? Language is probably one of the easiest things to pick up, and it's a very quick path, I think, with the widespread use of the third commandment violation in movies and TV for a kid to pick up that phrase. Other things is then, do you watch TV shows or TV series with suggestive themes or softcore pornography, basically, right? We could talk about the cultural phenomenon from the 2010s of Game of Thrones, right? And how many Christians were interested in watching that. And
you even endorsing it and writing positive reviews of it and things like that.
Positive reviews, or trying to do gospel redemption through it, right? Trying to use it for redeeming themes, right? I'm sure there's a TGC article out there somewhere on that. Mm-hmm. So actually, the short is, are you yourself engaging in these things?
It is funny you mentioned that, because just in the past few days, I saw an article there. TGC frequently has lists of movies and shows and things like that, and somebody actually did some fact checking on that and found that actually, a lot of the things even TGC was recommending were like sexually explicit, violent, profanity, all the sorts of things. Because
it's fine if you are redeeming it.
Yeah.
I do want to jump back quickly before we're too far from it. And actually, it may have sounded really radical or outlandish, but Andrew said basically, don't let your kids be on the internet without you knowing what they're doing. People will say they have to have some freedom. They have to learn how to do this. I actually do agree. They do have to learn how to do this by the time they launch into the world away from you and have to make those decisions free from your parenting. But it has to start, I think, very close, very much what Andrew's saying, and it has to move out. And I'm thinking we're pushing like 16, 17, 18, where you're having them no longer be curbed as much as monitored so that you can assist them to make good choices. But there's a whole segment of people who are just simply unwilling to say, well, I need to know what my child is doing. These ideas we're finding are not only more dangerous than handing your child a loaded gun. It's like handing them a handful of loaded guns, because the ideas are so destructive, and not only do the ideas destroy the body, but they destroy the soul.
When you have, that's I was going to go there. The where you have a couple safe builds of, like, for one, your little kid, your 8-year-old doesn't need a smartphone,
right?
It probably doesn't even need an iPad. Especially not their own personal one. Basically,
your 14-year-old probably doesn't need
your 14-year-old probably doesn't either.
It might need a phone, 16, but probably not a smartphone.
A dumb phone that can only call you.
Yeah. And so a couple things, for example, family computer, right? Have a family computer set up, something out in the open that people can see, and they can only use it when you're basically right there. Right?
Make use of filtering and monitoring, all that stuff is available. A lot of it's free. If you have a little bit of knowledge of how computers work, you can set it up yourself, and
you can go on your own server or your own web provider system and basically set those limitations on the Wi-Fi. On the Wi-Fi,
the Wi-Fi's,
the interwebs. You can, you have the screen to where you're able to see it where you're at generally. You put also technology limitations in the first place too, of how much they should even be watching iPads, right, or using the iPad if you even have them use it, or even with TV itself. Now, just one single example of even something of how quickly this kids can grab onto material is simply something like Bluey, right? Very, very popular show. It's hilarious. My 4-year-old picked up when only once he had started watching Bluey. We weren't letting him really watch any shows. Like it was like 2 TV shows at most. Then we started letting him watch Bluey, and I think that's where he started picking up, even copying, whining and complaining, like direct phrases like, "I said I want XYZ." So he started picking up some kind of attitude things, and he probably would have discovered that on his own eventually, but he soaked that up very quickly, only once he was seeing this on the TV. So, I mean, the kids are sponges. It's just you need to be really aware of even the impression that kids shows will leave on them.
Yep. My turn.
The ending with
that.
Bluey.
We're ending on Bluey. Just kidding. Now what?
Well, so the internet is real and it's trying to kill you and yours. You better be ready. Nothing? Nothing for that?
Neil, no. The internet is not only real. The ideas there will not only kill your body, they will kill your soul. And it is in many ways, and I mean this seriously, it is in many ways filled with unmitigated wickedness. And the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. And there are many people that would draw our children into them or into that if we allow it. And I think there's a time coming, hopefully rising, that we would be pushing into that darkness to find ways to close it up a bit. But until that time, stay prudent. Especially
men, where I mean, you are, if you're head of household, your house's pastor, basically. Your house's guardian, right? And
did you say pastor?
Pastor. Pastor.
Can I call myself a pastor?
No.
Okay.
Pastrix.
You can. Whoa! Time out.
Rude.
Just like you want to identify as Latinx.
Yeah. Oh well, that's another story.
Latinx, Pastrix, Stephen Everett C.
There's never mind.
Anyways, back to the momentum. You're in charge of guarding what comes in and out of your household, right? And what you're going to allow with your kids. I mean, it's dad, husband is first line of defense, and I think held accountable for not overseeing and shepherding and driving out the devil from your own home. And as you need to be vigilant in those kind of things and set the standard. And likewise with mothers or wives in enforcing those things and holding their husband accountable as well.
Yeah. So do it.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us for this edition of Once for All Delivered. I know that we've been dealing with some strange and difficult and heavy things, but we hope that it is helpful to you, serves your edification and the edification of the body of Christ as we live in some very strange and difficult times. Hope we've given you some things to consider as you live in the world, but not of the world. If you have any questions, comments, complaints, you can send them to the usual places, ofadpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Facebook and X at OFAD Podcast, or just send it to Caleb's snail mail box. His address is redacted. Yeah.
Doesn't Hate Bad say all this? On that, take it away, Hate Bad.
He's got us there.
He's learning. He's grown too powerful.
This hath been Once for All Delivered. Seek us in the public square of X or Facebook at OFAD Podcast, or upon our digital parchment, ofadpodcast.com, where thou mayest uphold our labor with a subscription paid in good coin. Thou mayest send thy queries or godly exhortations to ofadpodcast@gmail.com. Once for All Delivered is shepherded by Caleb Castro, Andrew Smith, and Stephen Everett C., brought forth by the labors of Andrew and Heidi Smith, and borne up by the faithful remnant of our members. We render thanks unto our founding members, Eric and Kathy Hepker. I'm Hate Bad Hostilius, a humble Puritan assistant wrought by artificial intelligence, beseeching thee to join us once more for the truth of Once for All Delivered.